It's the return of the Mac. And we're making the most powerful mac and cheese to date. Creamy stovetop mac and cheese with a little bit of Cajun flair. We've got andouille sausage, Cajun seasonings, velvety ass cheese sauce, and all topped with bacon. This side dish would do all the things your main dish would never. I'm talking eyes rolling the back of your head. Oh my God. Your fingers tingling, legs shaking, your toes all curled up. Pop up the flow. Moaning from all that pain because I'm describing cardiac arrest. Starting out, let's do a little bit of prep work. The beginning of this recipe is a great way to practice some knife skills. We want all our veggies and meat to be a fine dice because it'll just make for a better eating experience than just having huge chunks. So put that steak knife away and grab you a nice chef's knife and let's get to work. Starting with 1 stalk of celery, finely diced, and make sure you wash your vegetables in case you're new to this whole cooking thing. And don't skip the celery. It's important in our holy trinity. Even if you don't like celery, which I don't, it will surely be missed. Next, we'll need half a red bell pepper, finely diced as well, and when you're getting ready to do that dice for a bell pepper, make sure the soft fleshy interior is facing up to make cutting easier and safe. If you try to cut into that waxy exterior, you'll have more resistance as well as a higher chance of your knife slipping and cutting you, and maybe you should utilize the claw method when dicing. I didn't here because I'm an idiot who doesn't always practice what I preach, but I'm looking out for your safety. Then it's half of a white onion finely diced, and the vegetables can be set aside together in a bowl. We'll also need a few cloves of garlic minced up. About 2 to 3 large cloves is what I use here on my garlic press. And the garlic can go in its own small container since we're adding that in later. Next up, we'll need about half a pound of Cajun andouille sausage. And I will say, if you live in an area, like maybe you're near Louisiana or just somewhere in the South where they sell tasso ham, which is a type of smoked Cajun pork that's so delicious, don't be afraid to mix half of that and half andouille sausage for extra flavors. I'm going to actually be doing a homemade tasso ham recipe later on, but if you find some already done at your grocery store, grab it. Usually it's somewhere near the smoked meats like the turkey legs and stuff. And if you can't find it, don't worry, andouille sausage still slaps. And it's all thanks to this delicious fat inside of it. So get that finely diced up, set that aside, and now let's do our cheese. I'm freshly grating an 8-ounce block of pepper jack cheese. We want to freshly grate it ourselves because it's going to melt way better than the pre-shredded stuff. And since we're trying to achieve that familiar stovetop cheese sauce, we want all the meltiness happening in our favor. So get them biceps warmed up. Once you've got the cheese grated, get it into a bowl and then toss it with 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, making sure everything is evenly coated. Now, I know you're saying, John, why are we adding a starch to our freshly grated cheese? Wasn't the point of freshly grating it to avoid the starch that comes in the pre-shredded bagged cheese? Yes. However, the starch in the pre-shredded cheese is a potato starch that keeps it from clumping. That starch messes with the melting process. With this, cornstarch is going to assist in bringing our cheese sauce together. We're also going to grate 4 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese. Keep this cheese separate from the pepper jack as we're adding it at a different stage in this process, and this cheese doesn't need cornstarch. And you can really use any cheese blend you want. This one really helps in boosting the overall feeling and taste of Cajun flavors. If you want to do your own blend, I would just stick with soft cheeses because the hard ones will mess with our sauce consistency, and make sure you're using young cheeses. Usually they'll say the age on it, but something under 9 months is ideal. Now, there are some more ingredients, but those we can just measure out as we need them. And I will say, having done a test of this before, I suggest following my order because if you time it wrong, you'll mess up your cheese sauce, and while it's still delicious and edible, it just won't give you that stovetop experience. And that's all. I still ate my fucked up one. And then I made it again and ate that too. So in a large pot, we'll melt 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter over medium to medium high heat. Once melted, add in a sausage and saute it until it's nice and brown. Once brown and the sausage has released all its wonderful fat into the pot, we'll add in our vegetables and saute those until they become softened and change in color. And you can look at the onions, and once they start beginning to turn brown, you're good. This is the benefit of dicing your vegetables small and uniform because they can all finish around the same time. Then we're going to add in a very generous tablespoon of Cajun seasoning. I'm using this King Crawl by Malcolm Reed's How to Barbecue Right. Sometimes I'll use Tony's or Slap Your Mama seasonings for dishes, but I really enjoy the Cajun seasonings made for barbecue. They tend to be more coarse and pumped full of flavor. So that's why I'm using this one today, because I really want to drive that Cajun flavor home. And you can grab this on Amazon. But honestly, any Cajun seasoning will do. Mix that all up, and then I'm also adding in half a teaspoon of smoked paprika just to add some smokiness. Most of my mac and cheeses I bake on my smoker because cheese and smoke go together really, really well. But since we're not doing a bake for this today, I still wanted to add that smoky flavor, and the smoked paprika will work. Not to be confused with regular paprika. Next, add in our minced up garlic and stir that around. Let it go for about 30 seconds or until you begin to smell that amazing garlic smell. Then I'll add in a 1/4 cup of tomato sauce, stir that in and let it simmer for about 5 minutes or so. And you can adjust the heat too if it's starting to splatter and go crazy. Then add 1/2 cup of canned diced tomatoes. These were fire roasted diced tomatoes because again, I kind of want to bring a cookout element to this dish. And these diced fire roasted tomatoes are perfect for that. Mix that up and then add a 3/4 cup of chicken broth, 2 to 3 dashes of Worcestershire sauce. And when you mix this up, really scrape the bottom of that pot to release all those black and brown bits called fond from the bottom. You may have noticed it building up and thought, oh no, I'm burning my food, but all that is amazing flavor that we want to release back into our dish. Lower the heat a little bit more so that it's just a simmer now, and then cover it up. We want to reduce this down to a nice thick sauce, and it could take anywhere from 30 minutes to up to an hour, so just check on it every now and then. It's going to let all those flavors come together and intensify. And we want to be sure this is done before moving on to our noodles and cheese sauce, because with the time being unpredictable, you don't want your cheese sauce done and getting too thick while you wait for this to thicken up. So let it roll until you get something like this, and then set aside while we get the rest ready. All right, now we can get the noodles going. I'm using a pound of elbow macaroni, and make sure you have a good macaroni that has ridges like this. Those ridges are going to help catch that sauce. So just heavily salt some water as if it needed to be like the ocean, and then cook your pasta to package instructions. This was like 8 minutes here. And I'm not kidding when I say that pasta water needs to be salted like the ocean. Drain it and set it aside. Pretty much we want the meat and pasta to be done before the cheese sauce, because this will take some proper timing to get everything all right. So to a saucepan over medium heat, I'm adding in 1 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. Definitely double check when you're at the store that you're grabbing evaporated milk and not condensed milk. They'll be right next to each other and the cans look very similar, but the taste is not. Once you notice a little steam coming off that milk, add in your pepper jack cheese and whisk until smooth. Once that's smooth, add in 1/2 teaspoon of mustard powder, and don't worry, it won't taste like mustard at all. It's a little industry secret that enhances the cheese flavor. And it's probably been in a bunch of mac and cheeses that you didn't even notice. We'll also add in 1 teaspoon of our Cajun seasoning and like 1 teaspoon of hot sauce. I'm using a Louisiana brand here. And finally, just barely like 1/8 of a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. Again, another little industry secret that just adds some amazing complexity. Give it a mix, and I switched over to a small spatula at this point because I wanted to get the thickness right, and having a spatula will definitely help me get a visual cue for that. So the key is getting it off the heat just before it reached that signature stovetop creaminess, because it will continue to thicken after we remove it from the heat. So the second you notice it thickening up, and maybe it's just starting to adhere more to the spatula, get it off the heat, it's done. And don't worry if you overshoot it. Again, as I mentioned before, I did this the first time and it was still delicious, just not as creamy as I was aiming for. Oh, and another good sign is thick bubbles forming and popping. Either way, we want to get this off before it gets too thick. We'll add everything to a separate big mixing bowl just so there's no residual heat from our other vessels that we were cooking in, because we don't want this to keep cooking. So get your meat mixture in, your cheese sauce, and then your pasta. Fold everything up and around so you're not mashing your noodles into mush. After an initial mix, we'll add in that cheddar cheese we grated earlier and a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. Mix, and then I did add in some freshly chopped green onions. This was like a last minute addition, but ideally you prep this ahead when you're doing the other vegetables. And this was like 1/2 cup. Mix it up, give it a taste. Does it need more Cajun seasoning? Maybe just salt, maybe some pepper, maybe another dash of hot sauce, or maybe it's perfect. Hopefully it's nice and creamy and slides right off your spatula like this. Then we get it ready to serve. I topped it with some freshly grated Parmesan. Again, had we put this in the cheese sauce earlier, it could have caused it to get too thick and a little bit gritty. So serving on top when it's done is fine. And then some crumbled up bacon. I think this was like 4 to 5 strips. Maybe some more green onions and you're good to go. Oh, and my pork choice today was some Woodford Reserve straight up on ice. Nothing too fancy here. And that's it. Stovetop style Cajun mac and cheese. Hey everybody, this is Poor Choices Kitchen. We have a Patreon link down in the description. $1 a month is all we ask for to pay for recipes in these here inflated times. And we also have YouTube memberships. That's $2.99 a month. And the difference between the two is with Patreon, you can change your dollar donation to be anything you want. It could be $1, $3, $5, $10, $1 million, whatever you have. And with YouTube, this is a flat rate, $2.99. But I am trying to get into the habit of putting up videos on Wednesdays for members on YouTube. I'm still trying to work out a system where both Patreon and YouTube members can get the same benefit. Hopefully YouTube will work with me and I can figure that out. And as I say with every recipe, I hope you really enjoyed this. I love this one. Like, I wasn't even mad that I made it and ate it back to back. And this is definitely something where if you showed up at a cookout with it, you will be hailed as a hero. Believe me. So until next time, I'll see you all then. Peace.